My girlfriend's secret life as a cam girl was exposed, and now she's blaming me for ruining her career and forcing her to quit her job. My girlfriend, Emily, 29F, and I, 31M, had been together for about 3 years. On the surface, our relationship seemed perfect. We shared everything, supported each other, and made plans for the future. Emily had always been open about her career as a graphic designer, working from home and handling freelance gigs for small businesses. I admired her work ethic, her ability to juggle multiple projects, and her creative passion. At least, that's what I thought her life was like. Our relationship took a dark turn recently when I discovered Emily had been hiding a huge part of her life from me. She wasn't just working as a graphic designer, she was living a double life, one I never would have imagined. Emily had been secretly working as a cam girl, selling explicit content online. I found out completely by accident, and the revelation hit me like a freight train. It all started one night when I borrowed her laptop while mine was updating. I didn't think much of it, and I'm not the type to snoop, but as I opened her browser, I noticed some sites in her history that caught my eye. These were just casual adult sites. They were live streaming platforms, the kind where people pay to watch others engage in, well, things I had never thought Emily would be involved in. My heart pounded as I clicked through the links, each one confirming my worst fears. The videos were all there, and the woman in them was unmistakably Emily. She had been broadcasting herself, doing things for money that made my stomach churn. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The woman I thought I knew, the one who painted herself as this hardworking, independent professional, had been making money in ways she had kept completely hidden from me. At first, I was in shock. It didn't feel real, like some horrible misunderstanding. But as I dug deeper, I saw how long it had been going on. Emily had been running this side business for years, long before we even got together. I sat there, numb, staring at the screen, trying to process what this meant for us. How could she keep this hidden from me? Why had she lied for so long? I spent hours sitting in silence, my mind spinning in circles. By the time she got home, I was ready for a confrontation, but I didn't want to explode immediately. I wanted to understand why she had kept something so significant from me. But when I brought it up, when I calmly told her I had seen everything on her computer, she didn't respond how I expected. Instead of apologizing, instead of explaining, Emily got defensive. Fast. She crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing as if I had done something wrong. Why were you going through my stuff? She shot back, her tone sharp. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't upset that she had been caught. She was mad that I had found out. It was like I had broken her trust, not the other way around. I told her I wasn't snooping, that it had all come out by accident, but she didn't care. She was more concerned with the fact that her secret was exposed than with how it affected me or our relationship. She tried to brush it off at first, saying it was just a side gig, a way to make extra money, like it was no big deal. But to me, it was a huge deal. How could you lie to me for so long? I asked, my voice breaking despite my efforts to stay calm. You've been hiding this for years. How am I supposed to trust you now? But instead of showing any remorse, she turned the tables on me, claiming I was the one overreacting. It's my body, my choice, she snapped. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd freak out. I was doing it long before I met you. It's not like it affects you. Her words stung, and the indifference in her voice only made things worse. I had always supported Emily, stood by her side no matter what. But this felt like the ultimate betrayal. It wasn't just about her being a cam girl. It was the years of lying, the fact that she had kept this huge part of her life hidden from me. And now, instead of owning up to it, she was trying to shift the blame onto me, as if my reaction was the real problem here. We argued for hours, the tension between us growing more toxic by the minute. I told her how hurt I was, how deceived I felt, but she didn't seem to care. She just kept saying it was her life, that she had the right to do whatever she wanted, and that I was the one making things worse by reacting like this. I barely slept that night. The images I had seen on her laptop replayed in my mind like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I loved her, but how could I ever look at her the same way again? How could I move forward knowing she had been lying to me for so long? By the next morning, things between us were colder than ever. Emily barely spoke to me, and when she did, it was to accuse me of ruining her career. You found out, and now everything's ruined, she spat. My followers will leave, and I'll lose everything I've worked for because you can't handle it. Her words cut deep. I wasn't the one who lied. I wasn't the one who had been living a double life. But somehow, in her twisted version of events, I had become the villain. I didn't know what to do. All I knew was that our relationship would never be the same again. After that first night, our relationship began to unravel at an alarming speed. Emily's anger was palpable, and she made no effort to hide it. She started treating me like the enemy, as if discovering her secret was the true betrayal in our relationship. Every time we talked, the conversation would inevitably circle back to how I had ruined her life by finding out. It was as if she had completely detached herself from the consequences of her actions and placed the blame entirely on me. Days turned into weeks, and Emily continued her cam work despite my pleas for her to stop, at least until we could figure out how to move forward. But she refused. In fact, she doubled down. I caught her on several occasions, setting up her streams while I was still home, making no effort to hide it anymore. It was as though she was doing it out of spite, knowing how much it hurt me. One night, after another argument, she threw her phone at me in frustration. "I need the money," she shouted. "You think freelance graphic design pays all the bills? You think I'm doing this because I want to? I have no choice, and you're just making it worse." I was stunned. I had no idea she was struggling financially. We'd always split the bills, and while things weren't luxurious, we never seemed to be in serious trouble. I asked her why she hadn't told me about the money problems, but again, she deflected. "Because you're always judging me," she snapped. "I knew you'd freak out, and now here we are. My career's in ruins because you couldn't handle the truth." The fact that she kept referring to her camming as a career made me uneasy. It wasn't the kind of career we'd ever discussed when planning our future together. When we talked about buying a house or traveling, this was never part of the equation. I felt like I didn't know her at all anymore. It was as if the woman I'd fallen in love with was a complete stranger, someone living an entirely separate life with its own set of rules. Our fights escalated, and soon Emily wasn't just blaming me for her camming troubles. She started blaming me for everything. The fact that her graphic design clients were drying up, the loss of her followers on her cam page, and even the fact that she wasn't making as much money as before. All of it was somehow my fault. According to her, my jealousy and controlling behavior had poisoned everything, driving her to work harder on her cam business to make up for the financial gaps. It was maddening. Every time I tried to reason with her, she twisted my words, making me out to be the bad guy. I wasn't perfect, sure, but I had never been controlling. I'd never told her what to do with her life. But suddenly, I was being painted as this overbearing partner, someone who couldn't accept her independence, someone who was trying to cage her. The worst part, she started telling our mutual friends about it. One afternoon, I got a text from my best friend Tom, 32 and M. It was short and blunt. "We need to talk." My stomach dropped. I called him immediately, and he didn't mince words. "Emily's been telling people you're trying to ruin her career," he said. "She's saying you're controlling, that you can't handle the fact she's making money her way." I couldn't believe it. Emily had taken our private arguments and turned them into some kind of twisted narrative where she was the victim, and I was the monster. I tried to explain the situation to Tom, but I could hear the skepticism in his voice. "Look, man," he said, "I don't know the whole story, but I'm just telling you what people are saying. You might want to get ahead of this before it gets worse." And that was it. Our personal issues had leaked into the public, and now I had to deal with the fallout. It wasn't just our friends who were hearing about it. Emily had started posting vague messages on social media, hinting at how I was trying to control her body and ruin her career out of jealousy. She was weaponizing her online following, using them as a shield while painting me as a villain. Things went from bad to worse when one of Emily's followers messaged me. I don't know how they found my profile, but they did. The message was vile, accusing me of trying to force Emily to stop her work and calling me all sorts of names. "You're just mad because she's a strong, independent woman who doesn't need you," the message read. "Get over yourself." I couldn't take it anymore. Everywhere I turned, Emily was playing the victim, turning people against me while I struggled to keep my sanity intact. It was as if the walls were closing in, and I had no way out. The more I tried to fight back against Emily's narrative, the worse it got. It was like quicksand. Every time I made a move to defend myself, I sank deeper into the chaos she had unleashed. My frustration turned into anger, and soon that anger became paranoia. I started to feel like everyone around me was turning on me. Our friends, family, even people I'd known for years, they all seemed to buy into her version of events. It was all so surreal. Emily had taken our private relationship, something I thought was sacred, and turned it into this public spectacle where I was the villain in her tragic story. And I had no way to stop it. The messages from her followers continued. They started flooding my inbox, accusing me of trying to sabotage her career, calling me abusive and controlling. I had no idea how to handle it. Every time I logged into social media, there was a new message, a new accusation, a new wave of people who had decided that I was the bad guy. I tried talking to Emily about it again, thinking maybe we could reach some kind of understanding. I wanted to save our relationship, or at least salvage some part of it. But when I brought it up, she just laughed. "You're seriously playing the victim?" she asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You're the one who tried to control me. You're the one who couldn't handle the fact that I was doing something you didn't approve of. So yeah, I'm going to tell people. You don't get to act like you're some innocent saint in all of this." I was stunned. I couldn't believe how easily she had rewritten the narrative, making me out to be the villain in her story. I wasn't trying to control her. I was trying to understand why she had kept such a massive secret from me, and why she was continuing to double down on it after everything had come to light. "Emily, I didn't try to control you," I said, trying to keep my voice calm even though my hands were trembling with frustration. I wish you had been honest with me. I wish we could have talked about this instead of it becoming this huge thing." She shook her head, clearly unimpressed. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't about you. This is about me doing what I have to do to survive. I don't owe you an explanation. I don't owe you anything." That was it. That was the moment I realized there was no salvaging this. Emily had fully embraced her role as the victim, and nothing I said or did was going to change that. She was too deep in her own world, too caught up in her lies and manipulations to see the damage she was causing. But then something unexpected happened. One night, while scrolling through my messages, I got a direct message from a girl named Amy, 27F. She told me she had been following Emily for a while and had seen her post about me. But unlike the other messages I'd been getting, Amy's tone was different. She wasn't accusing me of anything. Instead, she was offering information. "I'm sorry to bother you," her message began, "but I think you should know something. I've been a fan of Emily's for a while, and I subscribed to her private cam page. At first, I thought she was just doing her own thing, but then I started noticing something weird. She's been telling people that you were forcing her to do it, that you made her quit her job and pressured her into camming full time. I don't know you, but something about it didn't sit right with me. I just thought you should know." I stared at the message, my heart racing. For the first time in weeks, someone was actually questioning Emily's narrative. Someone saw through the lies, and they were reaching out to help. I messaged Amy back, asking if she had any more information, and to my surprise, she did. She sent me screenshots of Emily's posts, where she had been openly talking to her cam followers about me, spinning her web of lies even further. In those posts, Emily had painted me as this oppressive, controlling partner who had forced her to give up her dreams to focus on her cam work. She claimed that I was abusive, that I'd threatened to expose her if she didn't comply with my demands. The narrative she was selling was absolutely horrifying. But the screenshots didn't stop there. Amy had dug deeper and uncovered messages between Emily and some of her followers, where Emily had been talking about her plans to make her cam career more profitable. She'd even gone so far as to say that she was considering leaving me and moving to a new city where she could focus on herself. She made it sound like I was some obstacle she needed to overcome in order to live her best life. I was fuming. Not only had Emily been spreading lies about me, but she'd been plotting her escape for months, all while pretending to be the victim. She was using me as a scapegoat for her own decisions, manipulating everyone around her to believe that I was the problem. With this new information, I realized that I had more power than I thought. I wasn't just a helpless bystander in Emily's game. I had evidence now, real proof that she had been lying, manipulating, and playing the victim. I knew it was time to take control of the situation. But before I could act, Emily dropped another bombshell. She'd found out that I'd been in contact with Amy. She stormed into our apartment one night, furious, accusing me of spying on her and stalking her cam account. "You're pathetic," she spat. "You're seriously going to go behind my back like that? You're the one who's obsessed with controlling me, and now you're trying to dig up dirt on me. You're disgusting." I tried to explain that Amy had reached out to me, that I wasn't spying on her, but Emily wouldn't listen. She was too far gone. In her mind, I was the villain, and nothing I said was going to change that. But I didn't care anymore. I was done playing her game. After the confrontation, Emily's anger escalated to a whole new level. She wasn't just trying to control the narrative anymore. She was actively attempting to destroy my reputation. Her social media platforms became a war zone, with her posting multiple times a day about how I had betrayed her, how I had invaded her privacy, and how I was trying to ruin her life. The comments section turned into a feeding frenzy, with her followers jumping to her defense, throwing accusations at me, calling me every name in the book. But I wasn't about to sit by and let her burn everything I had to the ground. Armed with the screenshots from Amy, I knew I had the truth on my side. The real question was how far I was willing to go with it. Did I want to expose Emily and make everything even messier than it already was? Or did I want to find a way to end this quietly, without destroying both of our lives? The problem was Emily had left me no choice. She had been poisoning the well for too long, and now it felt like everyone I knew believed her side of the story. Friends stopped talking to me, people would give me dirty looks when I ran into them around town, and the worst part was that even my own family started to question what was really going on. My mom, 58F, called me one evening, asking if there was any truth to what Emily had been saying online. She wasn't accusatory, but the fact that she even had to ask tore me apart. "Listen, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "I didn't do any of the things she's saying. I didn't force her into anything. I never controlled her like that. She's lying." "I believe you," my mom replied softly, but I could tell there was hesitation in her voice. "But why would she make all this up? It just doesn't make sense." And that was the kicker. Emily's lies were so meticulously crafted that they made sense to everyone who didn't know the full story. She'd framed everything in a way that made me look like the monster, and because I hadn't been vocal enough about my side of things, her narrative was winning. I hung up the phone with my mom, feeling more isolated than ever. The people who were supposed to have my back were questioning me. Emily had gotten to them, and her manipulation was spreading like wildfire. That's when I made the decision. I couldn't sit back and watch her destroy me any longer. If she wanted a war, I was going to give her one. I pulled out my phone and started drafting a post that would blow everything wide open. In the post, I laid it all out. I explained how Emily had been secretly working as a cam girl for months, selling explicit content to strangers online while keeping me in the dark. I described how I had found out by accident and how she had turned the entire situation around, blaming me for her decision to quit her day job. But I didn't stop there. I attached the screenshots from Amy, the posts where Emily had lied about me, where she had spun her web of deception, and the messages that showed her plotting to leave me long before any of this had happened. I knew that once I hit post, there would be no turning back. This wasn't just a way to clear my name. It was a declaration of war. As soon as the post went live, the reactions started pouring in. At first, it was mostly shock. People who had been following Emily's side of the story were blindsided by the revelations. Some were skeptical, others were downright furious. But the most surprising thing was how quickly people started turning on her. A few of her longtime followers began questioning her motives, asking why she hadn't mentioned anything about the cam work, why she had made me out to be the villain when the evidence clearly showed otherwise. Emily didn't take long to respond. Her retaliation came fast and hard. She posted a tearful video, claiming that I had fabricated everything, that the screenshots were doctored, and that I was just trying to get back at her for leaving me. It was an Oscar-worthy performance, complete with shaky hands and dramatic pauses. She leaned into the victim role with everything she had, hoping to convince her audience that she was the one being wronged. But this time, the tides were starting to shift. People weren't buying her sob story as easily as they had before. My post had introduced doubt, and once that seed was planted, it started to grow. The comments on her video were split, Some people continued to defend her, but others were beginning to see through the cracks in her story. I sat back and watched the chaos unfold. It was a strange feeling, knowing that I had ignited this firestorm. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part of me felt sick. This wasn't how I wanted things to go. I'd wanted the truth to come out, but I hadn't expected the fallout to be so brutal. A few days after the video went up, Emily showed up at my apartment, unannounced. She looked disheveled, like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were red and puffy, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't look angry. She looked desperate. "You have to take it down," she said, her voice trembling. "Please, just take the post down." I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. "Why should I? You're the one who started this, Emily. You're the one who lied about everything. Why should I help you now?" Tears welled up in her eyes again, but this time they didn't feel like part of her performance. They felt real. Because I can't do this anymore. I have **** it up, okay? I know I did, but people are turning on me. They're saying horrible things. I didn't expect it to get this bad. I stared at her, unsure of how to feel. She had put me through hell. She had tried to ruin my life, turn my friends and family against me, and now she was asking for mercy. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face and leave her to deal with the consequences of her actions. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the person I used to love, felt conflicted. "You did this to yourself," I said quietly. "I didn't want any of this. I just wanted the truth." "I know," she whispered, wiping her eyes. "I know. I have **** it up. I don't know why I did it. I panicked. Please just take it down. I'll do anything." I stood there, staring at her in disbelief. After everything she'd had done to me, after all the lies, the manipulation, the public humiliation, now she wanted me to just let it go. Emily's plea hung in the air between us like a weight neither of us could lift. I wanted to feel something, anything, maybe the satisfaction of seeing her brought down, maybe anger that she was still trying to manipulate me, but all I felt was tired. "Emily, do you even hear yourself?" I said, my voice quiet but firm. "You did everything in your power to destroy my life, and now you're here asking me to make it all disappear like none of it happened." She didn't respond right away. Her hands trembled as she tried to compose herself. Her mascara was streaked from crying, and her eyes were filled with an exhaustion I had never seen in her before. It was like she'd finally realized how far she'd fallen, but I wasn't sure if that made me feel better or worse. All I knew was that I didn't trust her tears anymore. "I didn't think it would go this far," she said finally, her voice shaking. "I didn't mean for it to turn into this. I thought I could control the situation, but it spiraled. I made a mistake, okay?" I panicked. When everything started unraveling, I didn't know how to stop it. The thing is, I understood that part. I knew how things could spiral out of control. I knew how mistakes could snowball until they consumed everything. But Emily's actions went beyond mistakes. She had intentionally twisted the truth, destroyed my reputation, and made me out to be the villain in her story. And now she wanted to rewrite the ending. "You didn't just make a mistake, Emily," I replied. "You made choice after choice to hurt me, to lie, to drag my name through the mud. You did everything in your power to make sure I came out of this looking like the bad guy. Why would I take down the post? Why should I care about what happens to you now?" She looked at me, her lips trembling, but she said nothing. The silence was heavy, but in that moment, I felt like I had all the power. Emily had built her life around lies and manipulation, and for once, she was facing the consequences of her actions. For once, she couldn't talk her way out of it. "I get that you're scared," I continued, my voice softening just a bit. "I get that you didn't think it would blow up like this. But I'm not going to just sweep this under the rug for you. You have to live with what you've done, just like I've had to live with the fallout of everything you put me through." She flinched at my words, but I wasn't done. "You destroyed my reputation. You turned our friends against me. You made my family question me. You tried to take everything, and now you want me to save you from the consequences of your own actions. No, Emily, this is on you." Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time, I saw real defeat in her eyes. She had played every card she had, and none of them had worked. I was no longer the person who would bend to her manipulation, no longer the one she could guilt into doing what she wanted. She had lost. "Please," she whispered again, barely audible. "I can't handle this. I'll lose everything." I stared at her, and for a brief moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. But then I remembered all the nights I had spent trying to convince people that I wasn't the monster she made me out to be. I remembered the cold stares, the whispers behind my back, the friends who had abandoned me. And I remembered that none of this was my fault. "You should have thought about that before you tried to destroy me," I said. "I'm not taking it down." With that, I stepped back inside my apartment and closed the door. The click of the lock felt final, like I had sealed off a chapter of my life that I never wanted to revisit. I stood there for a moment, my back against the door, listening to the silence on the other side. After a few minutes, I heard her footsteps retreat down the hallway, and with them went the last remnants of the hold she had over me. The days that followed were strange. There was a certain sense of freedom in knowing that I had finally stood up to Emily, that I had refused to let her continue controlling the narrative. But the fallout wasn't over. Emily's online posts became even more erratic after that night. She began spinning even wilder stories about me, painting me as some sort of manipulative mastermind who had orchestrated the entire situation. She accused me of using her for my own gain, of forcing her into her decisions, of ruining her career. But the more she posted, the less people seemed to believe her. Eventually, the comments on her posts began to turn against her. People who had once defended her started questioning her motives. Some even started calling her out for her lies, asking why her story kept changing. It was like watching her carefully constructed facade crumble before my eyes. But as satisfying as that was, I didn't want to live in the wreckage of our relationship anymore. I didn't want to keep looking back at the destruction and chaos she had caused. I wanted to move forward. I decided to take a break from social media altogether, deleting my accounts and focusing on rebuilding the parts of my life that Emily had torn apart. It wasn't easy. The damage she had done left scars that would take time to heal. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe again. One day, I received a text from Amy. "Her and Emily finally lost it," she wrote. "About time people saw the truth." I smiled at my phone, feeling a strange sense of closure. The truth had come out, just like I knew it eventually would. And while the road to get here had been brutal, I was finally free from the grip of Emily's lies. As for Emily, I don't know what happened to her after that. She disappeared from social media a few weeks later, and I haven't heard from her since. Maybe she moved on, maybe she found a new way to twist the truth in her favor. But I didn't care anymore. She was no longer a part of my life, and I was determined to keep it that way. I had survived her betrayal. I had survived her lies. And now, I was ready to start over, without her,